Hello, hi, and welcome to Melanin Musing's week 3, despite a bit of a delay. But this week we're joined by my incredible best friend, Trinity, who's going to take us a bit through her life and her experiences with colourism and being a dark-skinned black woman in the UK. So, let's get started.
Hello, Trin.
Hey, Steph.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm all good. I'm looking forward to this.
I know. Can I just say though, before we start, shout out to you for doing this. I just feel like you always use your platform and your voice in such a positive way to uplift people, especially black people, their experiences. And I think it's a really perfect opportunity to get into something like this. And I'm so excited to see what else comes from it. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I promise I'm not paying her, guys.
She is. My check came in the post yesterday, so I can now say this thing unfiltered. I'm joking. No, but yeah, honestly, I'm really proud of you. You make me so proud in so many ways, and I'm so excited to see Melanin Musing grow. And thank you for making me your muse.
Thank you for being our guest.
My pleasure.
Let's start by introducing yourself a bit.
Yeah, so my name's Trinity. I'm 24. I'm a Christian. That's a big part of my life. I'm Nigerian as well. Grown up and lived in the UK my whole life. I am the youngest of 3 girls. I have 2 older sisters, and they've always been a big part of my life. They're my role models essentially. And I'd say that I've always kind of grown up in growing up I lived and grew up in a predominantly white area. So I've always been the only black girl in primary school, one of the very few black girls in secondary school, and then kind of went to university, when I was able to meet more people, kind of come into my own a bit more and have experiences with more black people. And then, yeah, I feel like being black in the UK has shaped a lot of my experiences and who I am today. And I am grateful for these experiences. Not all of them were positive, but I mean, they've had a big impact on my life. And yeah, and then now I'd say, to just pretty much summarize what I'm doing now, I work in financial services. I studied politics at uni, so very unrelated. And after uni, I worked for a startup, for a drink startup for about a year and a half, before moving industry. And yeah, I'd say beyond that, I'm quite a creative person. I enjoy engaging in creative activities, coming up with new ideas, problem solving in that sense. I enjoy daydreaming about ideas and trying to make them a reality. I enjoy eating. I enjoy cooking. Everyone who knows me knows that. I enjoy cooking so much that sometimes I do take pictures of that and they are somewhere on the internet. But that's a story for another day.
Obviously, you've had experiences growing up black in Britain and living in a predominantly white area. What kind of experiences have they been, and have they shaped you to the person you are today?
I'd say growing up in a predominantly white area, it made me not really be proud of my blackness, I'd say. For instance, being the only black person in a primary school, from then you're already kind of singled out. You're made to feel that you're different. Well, you know you're different. In your appearance already, you stick out like a sore thumb. And then I think you kind of feel like you have to make yourself fit in. So you try and lessen and soften your blackness. And you just want to be more appealing to people around you, quote unquote appealing, in the way you, exactly, in the way you act, the way you style yourself, from your hairstyles, even the way, just the way you carry yourself. And I think from a young age, I was very aware of that. And then from a young age, I was aware of that. But then going into secondary school, this was made less of a big deal to me, because then obviously there were more black girls in the year and within the school, and I had people I could relate to, and it became less of something to be shy about, and then became something, I can embrace. But then I feel like still within school, the education system, the way kind of how I grew up in the UK and in a predominantly white area, I was still felt like I had to be conscious of my blackness. And you get so many stereotypes attached to being black. So I think you just kind of don't want to fall into one of those categories or have people put you in a box. So you just still try and kind of shape yourself to be how others expect you to be in terms of being more approachable or being not too loud, etc. Because you always had teachers who would say, "Oh, the distraction of the class. Oh, you're so loud, this, that," and you'd be labeled things. And I guess you kind of just learn to think that about yourself. And then I kind of look back and I think, no, like, there were other people who were distracting. Why was it me and maybe few other black girls who are always given that title or put under that label? And so I think when you're removed from the situation, you realize it more. But I'd say you had to work twice as hard to prove your worth and to prove that you were capable of doing things which other people not necessarily didn't have to. And then I went to university, and this was less of an issue because I had more people who I could relate to, and I feel like I was coming into my own a bit more, standing up for myself. I was able to do that and just understanding what is right and what is not. And then obviously that translates into the working world too, and how I feel like I can conduct myself, how I feel like I can be more unapologetically me and not so ashamed of my blackness, like not ashamed at all of my blackness compared to how I was when I was younger. And so I feel like it's definitely been a journey. And yeah, I feel like now it's something which I embrace more than ever. I would never feel to shy away from it right now. I especially with what is currently going on, the events that have happened. We're in such a time where being a black person in the UK and just in the world in general, we've been through so much that the only thing we can do is just back ourselves up and be there for each other and really take pride in who we are and our blackness. So it's definitely been a journey. And I think along with that journey, it's like, there are countless things which you have to kind of be aware of, and when you're around certain people, knowing how to conduct yourself, knowing that you can't always be yourself around different people. And that has always been like a challenge for me, because it's like, obviously when I'm around my black friends or, you know, my close friends, I can be myself. Like, why should I have to tone that back? Because I'm in a certain area, just so I either intimidate you or make you feel like, you know, oh, I'm so up in your face. So yeah, it's been a journey.
It's so deep rooted, isn't it? Like, I can definitely thank you for quote unquote bringing out my blackness or making me more kind of accepting of the colour of my skin, like through university and that journey. Listening to you say, oh, we have to tone it down, or we have to make ourselves more acceptable, or like sound a different way, or like talk different to our like black friends than we do to like our white friends, or like our white teachers or people in power, etc. Like, it's something that's so deep rooted. It's something that like we're still struggling with, or I know I'm definitely still struggling with on a day-to-day now, even though I am more acceptance of the colour of my skin.
Exactly. Like, I believe that even though I embrace it so much and I'm so proud, it's something which is just ingrained in, I'd say, every black person, really, to know that there's a certain way you have to conduct yourself in order to be accepted. And I feel like that's always just going to be the case because of all the other things and like all the other labels which come with being black. So even, it's funny because at work, like one of my colleagues said to me, "Oh, Trinity, you're so polite. You're over polite in your emails to your clients, and like you can tone that down." But the thing is, because I had another experience where I was labeled and I was called aggressive and I was made to feel like I was an angry person by one of my employers in the past, and I feel like that kind of that racial gaslighting
Tarnishes
which
you.
I went through. Yeah. And so I kind of think, well, you can never be too polite. Like, okay, fair enough. There's a certain tone you need to speak to clients in, but like the politer the better, because I just don't want to end up in another situation where maybe someone is going to label me in a certain way and make me seem that, oh, she's not being polite. Oh, she's an angry black female. So
yeah, it's how we've been raised as well. Like, I know my parents were definitely like, you have to be over polite. You have to like give them no excuse to kind of shut you down. But like, it's such a juxtaposition because like you are Nigerian, and that is such like a proud culture, and I know Jamaicans are equally as proud, and like there's so much history and richness there. Being told to embrace that richness and that culture and that history, but also tone it down, it's
exhausting, isn't it? Trying to find that perfect balance.
It's such a disconnect in your head.
Yeah.
Like, do you think being Nigerian in Britain that's had an impact on you at all? Like, do you think any differently, like, because of how you've been raised?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that being raised in a Nigerian household has really shaped like the way I interact with people and my personal and like personal experiences I've had. I'd say even from the get-go, like you automatically are expected to kind of go down a not because my parents aren't super strict in that sense, where it's like you have to do one of these four career paths, like doctor, engineer, lawyer, etc. Like they were always a bit more liberal in terms of letting me kind of explore what I want to do. But I'd say that there was always a pressure to, first of all, not disgrace your parents, not disgrace your family. And that goes for everything. So even growing up and going to school, like getting in trouble would, the fear of my parents is, you do not want to get in trouble in school. And like, even when you do get in trouble for the tiniest things, which really a child growing up should not get in trouble for in school, you can see that the school is just being difficult. It's automatically like, oh my goodness, I've disgraced my parents. My parents are going to be so disappointed. And it's like, you just don't want them to have that disappointment because they've worked so hard. They've given us opportunities. And it's like, well, now I need to make sure that I'm doing all I can to stay out of trouble and to make them proud. And so it definitely has shaped my experiences, because I'd say that even the way I conducted myself in school, the way I engaged in social settings, like there are certain things as a Nigerian child growing up in the UK that I obviously wasn't allowed to do, or maybe I couldn't engage in compared to like some of my other peers who were just not Nigerian, who were white, etc. There was always this sense of, okay, this is just how it is. Don't question authority of your parents, etc. And I've always just kind of been very obedient to my parents and very understanding that, okay, well, they're the ones raising me. I'm gonna do what they say. I'm gonna make sure I don't disgrace them. I'm gonna make sure that I don't ever put them in a position to feel like they're not proud of me, to put them in a position to make them feel like they haven't done a quote unquote good job raising me.
I think they feel as well that they've got so many eyes on them from like back home or like around because they're the people who are actually doing well, or they've got their child or they've got their family out of their situation, and so there's an expectation there on their shoulders as well.
Exactly. And like you said, with expectations, this comes down to as well, when you finish school, it's a given. You're going to go to university. You're going to study something which is recognized within the culture, something which is not too obscure, not any of these subjects which aren't as familiar. You kind of want to go down that path and you think, okay, what am I going to do after university? And I think there was definitely a lot of pressure to make sure that I fell into something and I did something which was recognized and respected enough to my parents and to my family, and to ensure that when they could talk about their daughter, like, okay, she's doing this, and yeah, we're proud of her. She's done this and she's got this far. And I think definitely it did shape my decision in terms of like what to study at university slightly, because I studied politics, and I believe that before university I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think now, like a lot of people, we're still figuring out what we wanted to do. My mom's a doctor, for example, and she just never really understood how someone could not know what they wanted to do. Like from the get-go, from 16, like she was studying, she went to university at the age of 16, and so she's always wanted to be a doctor. But for me, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I thought, okay, I have my A levels. Out of all of them, politics is the one I enjoy the most. So I was like, let me just do what I enjoy and what will also be respected by my family back home, etc. But that being said, I don't regret my choice to study politics. I did really enjoy it. But there is definitely a pressure to make sure that you do something and you go down the path which is respected and familiar within the culture and among your family. I think as well, because I have two older sisters and they always did really well in school, and so it's like when it was my time, there was the same kind of pressure, and there's a pressure to make sure that you also make your parents proud, and you're also a great example of how well they've raised you and how well you've done. And so yeah, I say there are so many pressures which come with it.
You don't want to let anyone down, and there's a huge responsibility there.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's a flip side, isn't it? Like, you would have taken a lot from that upbringing into your adult life. So what kind of things do you think have stuck with you and you're now actively using in your adult life?
I'd say, like, for instance, discipline is a really big one. So I'd say that it has taught me to be, like, quite disciplined. It's taught me to not, like, give up easily as well, because failure is not an option. I'd say that's the thing. When you grow up and you're taught that failure is not an option, you have to make it work. And I feel like that's something which I've always been able to stick by and make sure that I remember in my adult life. It's also kind of taught me to be respectful as well to those around me, whether they're my peers, my age mates, or older than me. I'd say it's just a lot of these things which kind of have shaped who I am today. And I'm very grateful for my upbringing, because when I look back, half the things which my parents were doing then and teaching me then, which may have not seemed fun or may have not seemed appealing to a young girl, is now just like, yeah, like that it all paid off. Like, okay, it makes sense why they did that. It makes sense why they teach you to conduct yourself in a certain way and to do certain things, because, they're preparing you for life. And I think it definitely has paid off. And yeah, I'd say discipline is one of the main things that has really stuck with me and has helped me in my adult life.
Yeah. In doing this, it would be reductive of me to forget about the actual issues within our own cultures in terms of dark skin, brown skin, light skin. The colourism debate is something that we have all struggled with, probably growing up. But how has that impacted you even from home?
I mean, I feel like racism is one debate, but then colorism is like another bigger problem in itself. And I'd say the main reason for that is because black people being colorist amongst themselves make it make sense. Like, instead of us to be uplifting each other, there's then, okay, we now put different shades of black into a box, and that is such a problem. And I feel like this takes me way back to secondary school, where it was the biggest issue for me. And to be honest, I'd say colorism does start at home, especially in many black households, African, Caribbean, even, like, for instance, within, like, Asian culture as well, and in Asian households. I know colorism is not just a thing for black people, it's among all races, really, among lots of races. But for example, like, out of my siblings, I am quote unquote the darkest one. And I was always made aware of that. And growing up, I used to think I was the darkest person on earth, like, in terms of my skin tone, because, oh, Trinity, you're so black. Like, I always got that. And looking back at it now, like, there are definitely people darker than me, and I used to just think, oh my gosh, I'm so dark, I need to do something about this. And then you also have other terms like, oh, this person is so yellow, like, oh yeah, they're nice and yellow. And it's just like, why are we using those kind of terms to describe ourselves, to describe our daughters, to describe our, like, siblings, to just describe our people? But yeah, and I think I was very aware from a young age that, okay, I was darker. My older sister's always been like, Trinity, your skin's beautiful, like, always uplifting me and made me feel like, I'm beautiful and my skin was, like, shouldn't be an issue. And obviously you hear these things and you hear these, like, encouraging things, but in yourself you think, no, this is a problem, because even though I'm seeing this and hearing these things within, like, behind closed doors and within, like, family ties, etc., this is something which is also being translated out into the real world, and how people are perceiving you and approaching you as a dark-skinned black woman. And I think in secondary school, it really, like, hit home when you just felt like you weren't as attractive because you were dark-skinned, because there was this whole era of light skin, mixed race. Oh, I want to date a lighty. Like, black girls, let alone dark-skinned black girls, were never ever deemed as attractive or desired. And I think once you know that as a young girl growing up, you kind of think, okay, well, like, if my own people, if black guys don't like me, if white guys don't like me, like, who was there for me? Like, I give up. So it was never even something which I even tried to fight for, not even fight for, but not something which I tried to let bother me too much, because I was like, that's just the way it is. Like, I'm not deemed as attractive by any side. Like, no one's interested in me. That's okay. I have other things to focus on. I have other things to worry about. But it was such a problem. And I think that as well, so many dark-skinned girls will definitely have a story of, of, of being a dark-skinned girl and how it made them feel and how it affected them. And I think one of the lowest points would be when I went to like this social event with some of my friends. And obviously, like, again, guys will just look through you as if you don't exist. They won't talk to you in a way as if they're, in the slightest bit attracted to you. It'd always be, oh yeah, light skinned girls, like mixed race girls, my light girls, I'm gonna go for them. And I was like, okay, that's the way it is. But then I remember coming home and just feeling like, okay, something is wrong with me. Like, I am not attractive at all, and that's because of the color of my skin. That's because of how dark I am. And I was like, I need to do something about this. And I was like, how am I gonna make my skin lighter? I need to get my skin lighter. And I was like, I don't know how, like, but I need to like bleach my skin. And that is so dangerous to think that those thoughts were coming to someone who was 14, 15 at the time, just because of how other people made them feel. And it's actually sickening, the fact that dark-skinned girls were the butt of every joke and were made to feel so inferior that it led to those kind of thoughts. And I only dread to kind of imagine what other thoughts and what other experiences people actually had, because I'm sure if people had those thoughts, people definitely would actually try and do something and bleach their skin or even try to correct. I would not be surprised. Like, I'm sure there are countless stories or examples of people really trying to just lighten their skin growing up because of how they were made to feel for having dark skin. And obviously I never did. Like, thank God I didn't, or didn't like take any steps, because that would have been so dangerous and I would have regressed and it would have probably scarred me for life. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of how people made you feel growing up as a dark skinned girl and making you feel like, oh, you weren't as attractive. Oh, because you don't have certain features, you haven't got the Eurocentric features, you're less appealing, you're less easy on the eye. And it's just so sickening to think that this is something which a lot of people were taught to just kind of have those views. And the fact that they were so open with them and that they can make someone feel that way is shocking. But yeah, even though those were the experiences I had growing up, it doesn't change the fact that it's still very, like, present now. Like, maybe not in the same way, but it still is very present. If people were more aware of what their words would do and how their words affected dark skinned girls, I don't know if they would still maybe do it, but I guess people just don't care. People don't care because people are still doing it. Because you kind of think, oh yeah, people have grown up, people have changed, but it is still an issue. It is still very present currently. And I think that people don't realize at the time how painful and detrimental their comments were and the effect they could have, and the lasting effect even. But I thank God for growth and for kind of coming into my own and loving my skin and loving my dark skin even more as I grow older. So.
Amen. I can't even imagine how hard it is to go on Twitter and see tweets dug up when people had these thoughts in the past and they're now like these changed people apparently, and they're changing what they're saying and they're apologizing for it. Like, that trauma is being re-brought up again for you. And like, do you think popular culture has negatively impacted kind of your life? Because for years it thrived off it, like, obviously because of, like, you can see the evidence on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, I think definitely popular culture has made the issues even more obvious because you can't escape it. It's very in your face. And I'd say even before social media days and the social media era, you could watch TV and you would not see any like dark skinned female leads. Or even like, for instance, shows like, Fresh Prince or My Wife and Kids, you hear of people, or you see examples of them swapping out their dark skin leads for light skinned women because maybe they're more easy on the eye or more appealing to the viewer and the audience. And there are two main issues, in my opinion, with popular culture. And that's, first of all, the lack of representation for dark skinned women. Like, I feel like dark skinned women have really tried for ages to give themselves like more of a platform and, not make it such a big deal that, oh, you have a black female lead. And it's great because we're now seeing things like that. But I feel like growing up, you had the lack of representation. And then overall, when they were being represented, it was in a problematic way. It was in a way to portray them as the angry black woman, the lower class, the aggressive. And that was such a problem because it's like, it's ingraining those issues and those ideas into people's minds of how they view dark-skinned black women. And like, you already have these like music videos you see growing up, like especially in the 2000s, where all the girls in the music videos would be light skinned or mixed race or Caucasian, and it's like, where are the dark skinned girls? And they were never uplifted, and you'd see a lot of rappers talk about their opinion on dark skinned women and glorifying light skinned women, coming up with the nicknames for them. And it's like, okay, you as a black man who should be uplifting, your fellow black women, regardless of their skin tone, you're then using your platform to bring them down. And obviously this is going to have a trickle down effect on the younger viewers and the viewers in general who are watching and who are looking to you as role models, because then they will see that as an okay way. They will see that as an okay mindset to have when dealing with the dark-skinned black women in their lives and the dark-skinned black women they come across. And yeah, so it is. And again, a lot of celebrities, like, you see them dating light-skinned women. Like, you don't really see as many, well, back in the day as well, you don't really see many celebrities with dark-skinned women. And when you did, it was like, oh my gosh, like, it's a dark-skinned girl with like a lighter-skinned guy. Like, what? Like, oh my gosh, like, what? Like, this is rare. But yeah, there are so many examples of colorism with pop culture as well. And I think as well with the social media age we live in, obviously now we have a lot more dark-skinned role models. Like, thank God, like, whether it be influencers or singers or actresses. But back in the day, there weren't really many. You had you had very few. And even like dark-skinned models, you're now having more of them, and they're so beautiful, and they're so respected in their field. And it's great to see how far we've come, but there is still a lot of work to be done. And I just think, like, with popular culture and social media too, like, it's so easy to get caught up in what is deemed as quote unquote attractive on the timeline. Like, you could see a lot of like light skinned girls like portrayed in a certain way, and mixed race girls, and like that is the example of beauty that we're being fed a lot of the time, but you'd often have to work twice as hard or even like search twice as much to see that for a dark skinned woman. And it's great that people are more aware of it though. I feel like it's a topic which not a lot of people like to talk about, and it's a topic that people like to kind of not reflect on or bring up in debate. And I'd say that people need to be uncomfortable by the truth of other people's experiences. And predominantly, like, light-skinned girls or mixed race girls, or, anyone who didn't ever speak up or kind of defend dark-skinned women should kind of just think about like their part to play as well. Because although like we're saying now, like, to not speak up about racial issues is making, like, you're not an ally, essentially. So it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing back then. So if you saw what was going on and you didn't really have anything to say, you weren't being an ally. But then now you obviously can maybe glorify dark skin women and say, yeah, they're so great, dark skin girls are beautiful, etc. But it's like, when we needed you the most to kind of, speak up about what was wrong, where were you? You were obviously enjoying your privilege and your light skin privilege, which was so real. And I think that people need to be more aware of that. And it's not too late to make a change and to try and better it.
Definitely not. Right, I think I'm definitely can hold my hands up and say I am absolutely guilty of my complicity at the time. Like, even though I'm not a mixed race girl, like, I was so kind of caught up in this web of, oh, light skin is better and more beautiful, and you want to be lighter skinned. And like, I have two dark skinned sisters who are gorgeous, and like, and I look back and I'm like, I would have been the cause of so much pain because of things that I just was so like ingrained in me of the standard of beauty. Or I tried to make people think that I was mixed race and things like that. I like lent into that opinion of me because it was better. It was more like accepted. And like, I'm not even a dark skinned black girl, so I have no idea. Of the pain that would have been growing up. Like, it's hard enough as it is being black. So I could just hold my hands up and apologize, really and truly, really and truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think like understanding your privilege and knowing how to to go forward and not use it as like, a tool in your day-to-day life or a way to further yourself or, to give yourself an advantage in day-to-day life is very important.
Do you think colourism is something that is still affecting you? It's something that you're still seeing and suffering from in your like daily social and working life?
Yeah, I'd say surprisingly not so much in my working life. Like, I really give it to my workplace for like kind of the experiences I've had so far. Because I haven't really been as affected in my working life, but it's definitely still very prevalent in my social life. Like, even sometimes, like, you may go out and I have light skin, black friends and other friends as well. Yeah, they're not black, they're not dark skin. And, I feel like in terms of social life, like sometimes you go out and you kind of see that maybe your light skin friends are approached more and like the dark skin girls in the group aren't necessarily given the same amount of attention. And it's something which still really happens, like, it's very common. And I think it's just so easy to ignore and brush over because you're like, oh, it's always been this way. Nothing much has changed. And it's definitely still there in the social aspect of my life. And even as well, some of the things I just hear people say, like, whether it be in like song lyrics or even like, can you believe in like 2 years ago, I was on my way to work. This was like 2018. Yeah, 2 years ago. It was 2018. And I was on the tube and this was in the morning and there were two black guys who were on my carriage that were right next to me, how packed the tube is. And I literally listened to a conversation of them saying, oh, I don't want any dark skinned babies. Like,
those are your colleagues and your friends.
My babies are going to be light skinned. Like, oh no, we don't want any darkies around here. Right in my face, like, without even a care in the world that I was standing right there. And I really wish I did stand up and say something because it was sickening to hear that. And I was just like, are you joking? Like, you grown professional men who have black mothers, your mothers are dark skinned because you are both dark skinned. You're likely to have dark skinned siblings. And it's just like the fact that people have the confidence to speak about that so openly is just shocking. And even so recently as well. So these are the thoughts which other people are definitely having around us. Maybe because we're not hearing them all the time. You know that there's like an unconscious bias and stereotype that people have for dark skinned girls and dark skinned women, and it's shocking that people are even thinking about like who they want to have children with just so that they come out so that they're born a certain skin shade and tone and so that they're deemed more attractive. And I just feel like it's really shocking, really. And so yeah, it's definitely still very obvious in like my social life and the social experiences I've had. To be a dark skinned girl, I feel like your standard of beauty is very different as well already. Because if you don't meet that standard of beauty, if your features aren't even quote unquote as Eurocentric, as softening on the eye, you're not deemed as attractive, or you're not deemed as attractive. And you present yourself in a certain way, look a certain way in order to just get that slight bit of recognition. I think that's changed over the years, in my opinion, from my experiences. But I feel like, especially like a lot of dark skinned women, really have to kind of make more effort in that sense just to kind of get that acknowledgement. And to be seen as a quote unquote attractive girl. And it's like, it shouldn't even be you're attractive for a dark skinned woman, you're attractive for a black woman. Because I've had that before. Like, I remember I've been told, oh, like, you're quite attractive for like a black girl, for a dark skinned woman. Like, you're not like the other dark skinned women. And I'm like, what are you trying to say? Like, that is so problematic. That's not a compliment to me at all. At all. And so yeah, I think that whole thing of like, black people have to work twice as hard to get through life, and being black and dark skinned, you have to work 3 times as hard. And I'd say as well, what is even more shocking is like I said, this is like a black on black issue, because in other races, dark skinned women, like, can be seen as so beautiful, like, especially when you travel. Like, I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and she was saying that, like, when you travel as a black woman, depending on which area you go to, you can be seen as so beautiful, and they don't care about what tone your black skin is. They don't care about what shade of black you are. All they see is your beauty. And it's like, why growing up as a black person in the UK, or like growing up as a dark skinned black person in general, why are we made to feel so less? Why are we made to feel less than we are and inferior compared to light-skinned people. And I think there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And I don't know, it's kind of like a form of self-hate in a way, because we really shouldn't be like dealing with these issues, especially in 2020, especially with all the past experiences we've had. We should not be colorist still amongst ourselves.
I think because it has come from, going back to talking about yellow skin and red skin and things like that, it has come from generations before us and what they knew. So we do have a responsibility, I guess, to unlearn that self-hate. But I think the responsibility needs to be put more on people who aren't dark skinned. Like, they have a responsibility, or we have a responsibility to not be complicit, to understand our privilege, to stand up for our brothers and sisters. We can't keep feeding into this stereotype. We can't keep feeding into this notion that lighter is better. The whole kids thing, the whole, we want to be with someone lighter, so we have lighter kids. We can't keep doing that. We are the problem. We are the problem.
Exactly. And I think as well, it's not fair as a light-skinned person to kind of downplay the experiences and examples that dark-skinned women bring to them about their past. It's like trying to argue with someone about racism. If you haven't experienced it, you can't argue against it. So just be there to listen and understand, and just try and improve on it going forward. Because I hear people say, no, it's not really like that. No, it's not like that. Oh, that's not the case. Have you been through it? No, because you've obviously had your lighter skin privilege through life, so you definitely wouldn't know the realities of it. And I find it so interesting. I guess growing up, we've had such different experiences, because you've had your experiences as being light skinned and I've had mine being dark skinned. And I feel like even though we're both black, it's amazing how our experiences vary so much. And I think, people have a lot of work to do still. But again, there's also a beauty which comes out of it, because it's not all about the negative. There are so many figures who, as I grew up, I started to adopt as role models and see them as, beautiful dark-skinned women and unapologetically dark-skinned. And it's so nice to just have more of that now. And even YouTubers, influencers, you have more people who you can identify with. Growing up, you go to the shop, you try and buy makeup, and you have the classic Dream Matte mousse. No one will forget the Dream Matte mousse. The Dream Matte mousse, which my white friends were using as bronzers on their skin because of how, because of the lack of variation in the whole range. But now you have these black influencers, black-owned businesses, black-owned makeup brands, and there are just so many people doing great things and also representing dark-skinned women and giving dark-skinned women the option to kind of be able to just live life as if, their dark skin isn't a big barrier or isn't a problem. Not having to think twice about the makeup shade you buy or where you're going to buy a foundation, because there are endless options and opportunities. Before, you would not have any variation. The only way you could get a slight variation in your foundation shade would be going to MAC and having to spend that more money. And who's going to do that as a 14-year-old? But now I'm glad that there's just kind of more acknowledgement that this isn't right. We need to be more inclusive and give dark skinned girls and black girls the options to just live life normally and grow up normally.
Humanize them.
Exactly.
We're not any different. You're not any different. I'm not any different. Why shouldn't we be able to get our foundation in boots?
Exactly.
What's going on there?
Exactly.
So going back to kind of your childhood, if you looking back over it and your experiences as a dark-skinned Nigerian woman, obviously you've experienced a lot and there's things that you've learned. If you would have any piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Ooh, gosh, countless amounts of advice I'd give myself for sure. I'd say the main thing as well, I would say to my younger self is you are perfect the way you are. As cliche that sounds, you don't have to try and prove to anybody else who may not like you or may not like a certain element of you. You don't need to prove anything to them. Just be yourself, because there are countless amounts of people out there who will love you for you. So don't even try and feel like you have to be someone who you're not, or to please someone. I feel as well, growing up, I felt I have to please so many people. I have to be liked by more people because, it means I'm doing something right. But no, not necessarily at all. you can be the most perfect human being and you will still have people who dislike you just because. So I'd say that just be yourself. Know that people's opinion on you does not shape who you are at all. I'd also say, like, to my younger self, like, don't worry so much. I feel like, I've grown to, like, get out of that feeling of being in a constant state of worry. And I think I used to kind of worry about so many things. But first of all, from, like, a Christian perspective, like, there is no point in worrying at all because, like, God is there to deliver you from your burdens and ensure that you don't have a reason to worry. So just put your worries onto Him. But also from, like, just like a personal perspective, like, you don't know what's to come and everything kind of does always work out. And I know people do have negative experiences and it's so much easier said than done, but everything will be fine. So don't spend time worrying about stuff which doesn't matter. Don't spend time trying to please people who don't matter and know that everything is going to be okay. So yeah, just stay true to yourself. Be yourself. Don't worry about so many things because at the end of the day, they'll take care of themselves. God will take care of them. And I'd say also, like, I personally believe in, like, protecting your peace and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who, don't surround yourself with people who just tell you what you want to hear because that's no way to go through life, but surround yourself with people who make you feel good about yourself. And even if that means, like, you know, kind of moving away from friendships which don't uplift you or like moving away from friendships which aren't having a positive impact on your life, that's fine. Like, people change. And I think as well, the biggest mistake people make is is thinking that people won't change. But as you grow older, people go through different experiences. People aren't going to have as much time for you. People's priorities are going to change and that's okay. But don't spend your time tirelessly trying to fight for, like, friendships which aren't necessarily right for you, which aren't necessarily uplifting you. So yeah, surround yourself with people who make you feel good about yourself. Don't surround yourself with people who just, tell you what you want to hear, because that is no way to go through life. But surround yourself with people who can really motivate you. It's okay to drop the quote unquote dead weight. Like, you'll realize that people change. Your friendships and dynamics are going to change. There are people whose priorities are going to shift and they won't necessarily kind of give you the same level of time they did before. They won't give you the same amount of support than you had from them before, and that's okay. But it's not okay to kind of just cling on to that and think it's going to change. Like, just really protect your peace and surround yourself with people who make you happy, who uplift you, who encourage you to be the best version of yourself. As cheesy as that sounds, like, my friends, I'm so blessed to have the friends I have because they big me up more than I can ever big myself up, and they encourage me to do more than I even think I can do, and to know who I am and to stay true to myself. And I'm so blessed that I have such a supporting circle of, like, people around me. Like, it's good to never feel that you can't really be yourself, or, you can't come to people with your thoughts and your feelings. And so, yeah, I'd say definitely, like, protect your peace and your circle and your friendships. And it's okay to, like, for that circle to change and for there to be a shift. And, so long as you're happy and so long as you're doing what makes you happy, that's important. And it's okay to be selfish at times, because I'd say we always give our friends advice and people around us advice. Like, I say you and I as well. It's funny because I always give you advice and you give me advice, but we never take our own advice. So never, ever, ever. And so it's important to treat yourself like you are treating one of your best friends. Like, you should be your own best friend and you should enjoy your own company, and you should big yourself up and encourage yourself, and don't put yourself down so much, because I think we do really put ourselves down a lot and we are so hard on ourselves compared to how we are with other people. And I would say take more risks, because me personally, I've always been very risk averse. Like, you already know, like, like in our friendship, you definitely take more risks than me, and you always, like, you're so fearless and you just go getter. And I'd say, like, growing up, like, you need to take more risks. Like, I'll never forget, after uni, I went to work backstage at Paris Fashion Week, and that was the biggest risk I took because my parents were against it. They were like, "You're not going to get paid for this. Like, why would you go to Paris? Like, you're not being paid." And I felt like saying, well, I'm using my money to get there. Like it doesn't matter. It's something I want to do. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was so happy I did it because like it was a risk I took. Like it wasn't easy at the time. It was stressful. It caused tension in my house, but it was something I did. And I look back and I'm so grateful I did it. And other things as well, like even taking risks with your career. Like if you're not enjoying what you're doing, no one's forcing you to be there at all. And it's about protecting your peace and doing what makes you happy. So even sometimes if you're about to take a risk and you're not sure what's going to amount from it, it's okay. Like take it, because most of the time you're going to come out the other side and you're going to be just fine, if not better. Because if you don't take risks, you don't know where you can go. Like the opportunities are limitless. So
Yes. Well, Trin, thank you for spending your time with me today and talking through your experiences with me. Like, so much of what you say, like, obviously, like, because I know you, I knew a lot, but, like, I learned a lot as well. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope everyone takes something away from this, and I hope everyone, like, really looks at themselves in, like, good and bad ways.
Exactly. And I hope that everyone just learns, to big up themselves a bit more, to love themselves, and to know that, you're not defined by what other people think of you. Like, that is the most important thing. So treat yourself like your best friend. I want everyone to do that.